Hi, it's Adam from Impact Gamers, and for this retro remake, we are remaking Operation Wolf. This concept has been designed by Connor and Charlie, and it was programmed by Charlie from Impact Gamers. So let's have a look. Operation Wolf came out in 1987 from Taito, got a Game of the Award Golden Joystick in 1988 for Best Arcade Game. You played a commando who had to rescue by shooting pretty much everything on screen. Now, we've remade it with water because we like to sort of aim to have no real world violence in our games, make them family friendly, and we'll break it down and show you how you can make this wonderful game. Let's get cracking. So we've loaded up Clickteam Fusion 2.5, the free edition, and we're going to start a new application. So click on File and New. We're going to set the application window size so it's a bit more widescreen. By default, it starts off at 640 by 480, but we'll change that in the window properties. So just in the properties window, click on Window, and we'll change it to 900 by clicking on the first number. Do we want to modify the frames? Yes, we do. And so all the frames are one frame that we have. Our first level changes to match. Let's go into that frame now. And I'm going to do that. There's a few ways to do that. I'm going to do it by clicking on the grey number 1 here, and it will take us straight in. For Operation Wolf, you have part of the screen set with your health and your ammo and sort of details of the enemies that you've destroyed. And then the other half is where you battle. So we're going to divide the screen up early on. And we're going to do that by inserting a new object. And we'll use a quick backdrop just to get a solid block of color quickly. So quick backdrop, click to put it down. And to set it to the right size, we're going to use the size and position properties. So 0 and 0 to put it in the top left. And the width to be 225 worked quite well. And the height is 480 because that's the frame's height. We can also change the color. This is where all our sort of GUI, our graphical user interface, our stats, our counters are going to go. And so I'm just going to change it to a solid black color. And there we go. And I'll just rename it as well. So I can right click on it and rename. And I'll just call this backdrop. Now I'm going to set another object to go over this side, and this is going to be an active object. So insert new object, active, OK, and click to put down. Now this active object is actually going to be sort of like a sensor area, an area to sense if we are aiming on the screen. So it's just going to be a solid color, but we need to change it. The quick backdrop you can set to be a color, but for the active, you have to draw it. So we're going to right click and edit. We're going to clear and just choose a color that is a solid color. So I'm also going to move its hotspot to help with positioning. Currently it's in the center, but I'm going to move it to the top left. So just click on the quick move, and that means it'll match in the same way our backdrop was positioned top left. This is as well. I'm just going to move it up to the top and use its size and position, and it's already there. But if it's not, you could just type in 225 and Y of 0. And then the width, then we'll set the width to be the difference of 900 minus 225, which is 675. So it reaches the end of the frame, and the height to be 480. And there we go. And let's rename this. And we'll call it the shoot area, the area which we can shoot in. Now we will add in something to represent the aim. And so we'll insert another new object, an active one again, and click OK and drop it down. Now in its about properties, we can change its name, or as before, we can right click and choose rename. And let's call this target. Now I'm going to edit the artwork, right click and edit. And I'm going to, I could resize it, sort of make it up to sort of maybe 64 by 64 might be good. clear, and then you could draw your own target using the ellipse tool. And the line tool, you could add in your own target, but we've already got one pre-made. So if you've downloaded the assets from the website, you can just download target, and that's fine. And just make sure that the hotspot is in the center. So there we go. Press OK. Now we'll do the coding so that the cursor, the mouse pointer, controls the target. So in the event editor, now a new condition, normally on the target games, we'd often say always under the cogs. But this time we're going to do when the mouse pointer is over the shoot area. So click on the mouse pointer and keyboard and select the mouse, and then check for mouse pointer over an object and over the shoot area. Okay. At that point, we want to right click under the target to reposition it. So right click and choose position, set X coordinate, and we want to retrieve wherever the mouse is. So click on the mouse, current X position, and it should read X mouse there. Then we want to do the same for the Y coordinate. So into the same box on that line 1, under the target, right click, position, set Y coordinate, and we want to get the mouse, current Y position, and it should read Y mouse. If the 0 is still there, it will tell you there's a syntax error. So just make sure that it just says Y mouse. Great, let's try that. So we run our application. We can see that the target's moving around with the mouse, but if we leave the screen, the target remains where we last left. Now we can still see the mouse pointer, so we'll close that. And so we'll just add a new condition in at the beginning and click on storyboard controls, starter frame. So this condition is triggered at the very beginning of our game. Even though it's not number 1, it'll be triggered as soon as that frame starts. And under the mouse and keyboard, we right click there and choose hide mouse pointer. Now if we run our application, we can see that there's no mouse there. And when we move off, it's visible again. Okay, let's save our application, file, save as, and give it a name. Now we've got that in place, we'll go back to our frame editor, which is this white square here, or you can double click here, or you can right click and just choose to go to the frame editor for this frame. Any of those will take you back here. And so we want to add in some counters for our ammo. Now, Operation Wolf works in a way that you have magazines that hold ammunition, and then when your ammo runs out, you load a new magazine in. Now we're doing it with sort of non-violent mortar pistols, but we're still going to have sort of a water tank and then ammunition, sort of water level within that tank. So let's insert some counters so we can keep track of things. So we're going to insert a new object and choose counter, press OK, and we'll just pop it on screen for the moment. Now this counter is going to be our sort of magazine counter. So we're going to click on about, and we will call this mag counter. So this is like the tank of water. Now we want a few more of these, so I'm just going to right click on the actual object itself. If you miss it, you'll end up clicking on the shoot area. It'll tell you what you've got selected, but if you right click on the actual object of the counter, we're going to clone it to make multiple versions. And we want 3 versions. And this one, let's just change this from mag counter. This will be ammo. This will be the water that's left in the water tank. And then the final one, the water balloon counter. So it's the bomb counter or water bomb counter. Now we want to start off with some ammo. So let's just, for the mag counter, select it. If you're struggling to click on it here, you can just select it up here and right click and choose properties. And if we go to its settings, we've got an initial value. Now we want to start off with a value of maybe 3. And then for each tank of water, for each mag, we will have 12 shots that can come out. So for the next counter, for the ammo counter, we'll set to 12. And you'll see that it changes the icon here to match the initial value. And so the bomb counter, if you're struggling to click on these, you can just right click and choose properties. And we'll change the bomb counter's initial value to 3 water balloons, 3 water bombs. Great. So we want to add in a visual representation of when we shoot. So let's insert a new object, an active object, click to put it down, and let's name this. We can use the about properties, or you can right click and choose rename, but let's call this splash. And this is the thing that will actually do damage to the enemies. And let's edit it, right click and edit. Going to import a splash, and you can draw your own. Now there's splash icon and splash, but just choose splash. Great. Now, if when you import it, you see that there's black around there, that should be see-through. So when we import, if that's happened to you, just re-import it, go to splash, and when it asks for what transparent color, you can choose pick and use this eyedropper and choose the center and get black. And now you can see it's nice and transparent in the center. And the hotspot 1616 is in the center. That's great. If it's not, you can quickly move it there. And okay, we're just going to add a value for the splash so that it will disappear after a set time. And so if we go to the AZ in the properties window, and under ultra values, we'll choose new and double click where it says ultra value A. And let's change this to lifespan. This is going to be in hundredths of a second. So I only want it to exist for maybe a fifth of a second. So I'll put 20 there. Right. I think we're ready to add the events. But before I do, I'm just going to pull this splash off screen so that the player can't see it immediately. But I'm leaving these counters so that we can see what's happening for the moment in the event editor. So let's click on the event editor and have a new condition that for the mouse, if user clicks with the left button, then we want to create the splash. So let's just say under create new objects, we'll right click and create object, choose the splash, press OK, and then relative to the target. Okay, so we'll just test that out, and I'll just point out a few issues here. If we click, you can see that the splash is staying on the screen. So we want it to be destroyed. We'll need to add that in. But also it's going on top because it's made after the target. It's being placed on top. So what we want to do is close our test application, and we'll just add in a new condition. And on the cogs, we'll say always. And on the target, we will right click and say order bring to front. And then that way, when we click, the target is now still on top of all the splashes. Right. So we'll make them disappear. So let's click on new condition, and it's to do with the timer every, and we'll change seconds to 0, but on hundredths of seconds, we'll make that 1. It's easier to type in than to drag because it's a little bit, managed it. It's a bit hard to get just 1. Okay. And what we want to do on the splash is we want to start minusing, subtracting from that value of lifespan. So right click under splash, alt for values, subtract from, lifespan's already selected because it's the first one, and select the 0 and type 1, or delete it and type 1. There we go. Now a new condition that if the splash alt for values, let's compare to one of the values. If lifespan is, and let's choose lower or equal, if it manages to get lower than 0, then it should be gone. Or if it is 0, then we'll destroy it. So let's right click under splash and choose destroy. Now we run our application, we can see the splash appears and then goes. So that works, but our ammo is not depleting. So we'll add that in next. And it's to do with the fact that we can only shoot when we have ammunition. So let's right click on where it says user clicks with left button and insert. And we want to check the ammo counter. So we click on that and compare the counter to a value. And if it is greater than 0, then we've got ammunition. On this line, where the ammo counter is, it should be sort of 12 or whatever number you set it to. Make sure you've got the right counter selected. If you right click on there and subtract from counter 1. So test that, run application. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then I can't shoot anymore. That's great. The next thing to do is a new condition that if our ammo compared to the value, if it gets down to 0 and we have some magazines, we have some water tanks, we right click and insert, right click on the equal sign there or the 0. If our magazine counter, let's compare that. If that is greater than 0, then we can reload, and we'll do that automatically. So what we'll do is subtract from the magazine counter 1, and we will set the counter for the ammunition. So right click under the ammo and set that to be 12 or whatever you have your ammunition to be. So now if we run our application, I should be able to shoot 12 times, and then keep an eye on this 3 at the top, yep, down to 2, and then down to 1, and then down to 0 on my final tank. And when this goes, that's it. I'm out. Great. And that works fine. And that works well. And you can use that in the game and you can skip to the next section. But if you want to have a automatic weapon, like in Operation Wolf, there's a machine gun in the arcade machine that you hold down fire and it keeps shooting. Let's add that in. So we need to change it. So not that we're clicking with the left button, but we're holding the left button down. So we need to replace this condition. So if you right click here and replace it and choose the mouse pointer, the mouse, and then repeat while mouse key is pressed. That's if you're holding down a button, and left button's fine. So we can test that, run application, and you'll see you use up your ammo very quickly, all gone. So what we'll do is we'll have the target count in its own alterable value how long a reload is. So we will click on the target here and access its alterable values, press new, and double click on alterable value A, and let's change this to reload time. So when we're holding down the mouse button, we need to check that the ammo counter is greater than 0, and also we need to insert that the target's alterable value that we just made compared to one of the alterable values, that its reload time is greater than, and let's say a 1/10 of a second there. So we'll put 10. And if it is, we will set it back down to 0. So right click under the target, alt values, set the reload time back to 0. Like I say, this is optional, but we need to add in one final thing to count up on the reload timer. So on the every 100th of a second, under the target, alterable values, add to reload time 1. Now if we run our application, even though we hold down, you can see it's going down bit by bit by bit. Fantastic. Save your work, file and save. Okay, we're going to add an enemy in now. So we'll go back to our frame editor, and you can use any of the shortcuts or click on the white frame editor icon, and we will insert a new object and an active object. Press OK and click to place down. This enemy in ours is a firefighter. So in the about, I'm going to call it firefighter. And I'm also going to put it in a group. So in the events properties of it, we're going to click on blank space next to qualifier so that we can load up the qualifiers. Press edit. We'll add one in, and we'll say that they're bad. You know, these are things that are going to cause us trouble. We could say they were enemies. We could say they were dangers. We could say all sorts of things. We could say that they're radar enemies. It doesn't matter. We could even call them background scenery. It doesn't matter. It's just a group that makes sense to us. So bad makes sense that they are going to be an enemy. The click team doesn't know what they're going to be. We have to code it. So we're going to just choose a qualifier, and I've gone for bad. And I'm also going to give it a whole set of values because I know that I'm going to need certain things. So I'm going to press new, and I'm going to make 5 or so. Let's see if we use all 6. Double click on odd value A. I know that they'll need a health, and I'm going to start off with this one having a health of 2, a default value of that. I know that I'm going to need them to have an attack time, sort of a time that how quickly they attack, and I'm going to put that about half a second, 50 there. I know that they're going to have an attack power, you know, how much they injure us each time they attack. I'll set that to 1. I know that I'll need to sort of get it to randomize that, so I'm going to set one to be called attack calc to calculate when they attack. I also know that I want to know how many points I get when I destroy them, and let's say 100 points for this character. And also later on in the final sections, I'll be adding some sounds when they die, and I want them to have a random sound when they get destroyed. So we've got those set up, those 6 there, and we've set some initial values for those. Now let's change the artwork. So I'm going to right click and choose edit, and I'm going to open. And so we've got enemy A here, and there's enemy A stopped, and that's the one that I want, enemy A stopped. And press OK. Now, some things we need to pay attention to. The hotspot will be used to know when they're on screen. So the hotspot being in the center for this character is absolutely fine. And the action point is where they're going to attack from. And so I'll just place it sort of towards the hose that this character's holding. And for disappearing, if I go to import, this animation plays when the object is destroyed. So here's a set of animations here. And if I choose import as animation, then they'll load up there and play through. Okay, great. So I've got my firefighter there. I'm also going to, while it's still open, in its values, I'm going to set up 2 flags. Now, flags are like switches. They can be on or off. And so let's make a new one. I want to be able, just double click on flag 0 to change its name. I want to know when they're on screen, because if they're off screen, I don't want them to be able to attack. So I'm going to have a flag so I can check quickly if they are on screen. And another one for later on, I know that I'm going to have to reposition things. So I'm going to choose positioned there as well, because I just want this to be a template for all my other enemies. And rather than going through and retyping and adding things in, I'm just going to set this one up ready for all the options of any of the enemies. Right, so the first thing we need to do is make sure that Clickteam knows how and when they attack. So we'll go into the event editor. So to make the code tidy and the conditions neat, I'm going to just make sure the bottom condition is selected, this number 8 here for me. So click on the number, and I'm going to insert a group of events, and I'm going to call this attacking. Now this just means that all of my conditions can be tidily put within the attacking group. It makes no difference other than it's easy to see where your conditions are and where your events are. So within this group, let's first of all check if any of the group bads, so new condition, any of the group bads, if they're on screen. So collision, overlapping another object, shoot area. And if they are for that group bad, not for the firefighter, but for any of them in that group, let's set the flag on to being on screen. And then we'll do another new condition that once they've left the screen, so everything will be scrolling to the right in our game. So a new condition, if any of the group bads, if their position, compare their X position to a value, if it gets lower than, and I'm just going to delete this 0, and from the storyboard, I can find out the frame's X coordinate of left visible edge. So if they've gone off on the left, their hotspot is gone off the left of the screen, then we'll destroy them. And the player won't see them get destroyed because they'll be off screen. Now, let's then get them to calculate when they're going to attack. So we'll start off with a new condition and we'll do it based on time. So the timer, every, and we'll do that 0 seconds and 1/100th of a second, 1/100th of a second. We want to get all of the group bad. So let's right click and insert all of them that are on screen. So group bad, that their ultra value flags is on. So if any of them are on screen, 100 times a second, run this. And for each individual one, we will right click in the group and we want for each individual one to set an ultra value. And this is the calc that we kept. So make sure you change this down to attack calculator, attack calc, and delete the 0. And it's going to be a random number. So you can use random here and leave that selected in blue so that it's going to be overwritten, because what we want to choose is on group bad, we are going to find out, let's just move this to the side. We are going to find out their values, their attack time. So that's randomly going to choose a number there up just before their attack time. So if they have an attack time of 50 like ours, it will choose between 0 and 49. So let's say a new condition that if the group bad ultra values compared to one of the ultra values, if their attack calculator is equal to, let's say, 1, then at that point we want them to attack. Now we've got an object for them to attack with, and we need to add that in the frame editor before we can add the condition. So let's go back to the frame editor quickly and insert a new object, an active object, and place it off screen. Let's rename this to attack splash, and let's right click and edit it. And what we can do is we can clear the stopped animation because we're only going to have a disappearing animation. So let's import and we'll choose attack splash and press open. Now make sure it's got import as animation. And then this, if you press play, you'll see this is a splash on screen. It's a bit slow, so in direction options, we'll change the speed up to 100. That's better. And press OK. So in the event editor, so if the attack calculation is 1, attack calc is 1, let's create a new object. So under create new object on that line, right click, create object, and it's going to be the attack splash. Press OK, and it's going to be relative to whichever group bad has an attack calc of 1. So choose group bad. But in the options, we want to get it created at the action point. That's the target that we placed in the center by the hose. Okay. We can then destroy it so that it'll play its disappearing animation. So under the attack splash, destroy that. And then for us, for the player ourselves, for this black joystick, this is where the lives are kept. So we want to right click and number of lives we want to subtract because we've been hit. And it will be from the group bad, the value of the attack power. So they only have a power of 1, but if it was 2, we'd lose 2 lives. If it was 4, we'd lose 4 lives. And we can test that out. So we run our application, we should see them splashing us. There we go. Great. We can't see our lives because we just haven't got a object on screen. So let's just go to the frame editor and insert a new object of lives. Now, in Operation Wolf, it has a bar down the side. So I'm going to resize, click once and then resize this so only one heart fits. And then I'm going to drag downwards. And then I'll also change how the lives look. So I can just double click on them, or I can right click and edit. And I'm going to resize them to be 10 by 20. Press apply in these diagonal size. Clear it, and I'm going to choose a red bar. So I'm just going to choose a red and fill it in. So it's just a red bar, and just shrink it down again so you only get one bar at a time. Perfect. Okay, so now that we can see our lives, I can see that we've not got many, we've only got 3. So I want to start off with about 25. So in the event editor, where it says start a frame here, under player 1, I'm going to right click number of lives, and I'm going to set the number of lives to 25. So now if we run our application, we can see our health go down when we get hit. There we go. You can see it dropping by 1 each time. Now we want to be able to destroy them, so let's add that bit of code in. So close your test application, and this should be nice and simple. And we're going to go from the attacking group. We're not going to put it in there. We'll put it in at the bottom, back in the normal code, and click new condition. And it's going to be if a splash is collision overlapping another object, a group bad. Now we're going to have occasions where we have multiple splashes overlapping group bad, and we want them to each take off some health. Now for the moment this is fine, but when we add the water bombs in, we'll have to readjust this condition. But for the moment it's fine. So if a splash is overlapping any of the group bad, we can then destroy the splash. And for the group bad, we can subtract from their health 1. And so a new condition, if a group bad, if their ultra values compared to one of their ultra values, if their health is equal to 0, then at that point we can then destroy them. We run our application and we shoot them twice, then they're gone. Now if you notice, it didn't show the splash because it got destroyed so quickly. So what I'm going to do is in the splash, we will add, in the values, we'll add a little flag. So press new, and let's call this used. So we can then say if the splash is overlapping group bad, right click and insert, and the splash value flag is off, used, then we won't destroy the splash. What we'll do is we'll right click here and we will set its used flag on, because it naturally gets destroyed anyway when its lifespan runs out. So if we run our application, we should now see the splashes, there we go, appear. That's great. Let's save our work. File and save. So like I said before, in Operation Wolf, it scrolls along and we're going to have things scroll to the right. So in our frame editor, we're going to add an object to allow that to happen. So we'll insert a new object, an active object, and pop it down the bottom of the screen, and let's name it. So in its about properties, or right click on it, you can call it scroll. Let's just change the way it looks. I find that using bright luminous colors are quite useful for objects that the player isn't really going to see. And change the tolerance up and just fill it in. And I'll just make it look a bit like some arrows. There we go. This scroll object needs to have some movement. So in the movement, we will change it to bouncing ball movement. And let's try a speed of 10 to start off with. And in the initial direction, let's reset those, clear them, and just set it to go to the right. Now, our frame itself has nowhere to scroll to because it's just the same size as the application. So if we click on frame 1, we can change its size. So let's set it to maybe 6,000. And you can see now we've got a huge scroll area here. In the event editor, under always, we've already got an always rule. I've got it on line 4 here, but you should be able to spot yours. If you can't spot it, you can filter, you can press the cogs and it'll show only the cog special conditions. And if you right click underneath the storyboard controls, we can choose scrollings, center window position in frame, and then we can select the scrolling arrow, or you can just click relative to scrolling, either of those, so that it says relative to scroll. And that's fine. Now to unfilter, you just select the same object again. So if we run our application, we'll see that we go along, but we have an issue. Our black section has disappeared, and also our shoot area section has disappeared, which means that we can now no longer shoot anything on this part of the screen. So let's fix those. In the frame editor, we need to click on the shoot area, and in the runtime options, there's an option called follow the frame. If we turn that off, then that will stay always relative to that space. So if we run that, so we can see the black area go, but the blue area stay in the same place. Now we do have a slight issue that when our target goes off to the side, it scrolls off. Now this is all going to be hidden by that black section. Now a backdrop cannot go on top of any active objects. You can see there that it doesn't. If I pop it back, but we can add a layer. So in the layer toolbars, we're going to click new layer, and we're going to then drag this backdrop to layer 2. If we click on layer 2 now, we've got something called the scrolling options with the X coefficient and the Y coefficient. If I set the X coefficient to 0, it means it will not follow the scrolling at all. It will, 1 follows it exactly, and 0 follows it not at all. And anything else in between is a fraction of it. So now it won't, now it's on top and it won't move. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure I select layer 1 because that's the layer we'll be working on. And just so that we can see that things are scrolling, let's add a backdrop in as well. So let's insert a new object, a quick backdrop, because it tiles, it repeats, and drop it down. That's called a mosaic. So be careful not to do what I just did and drop your quick backdrop behind your active object, because you'll struggle to get it. So if I just edit and do there, if I insert a new object, a quick backdrop, and make sure you position it at the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen so you can see it. Great. Let's rename it. So in the about, I'm going to call it the yard or the garden, whatever you want to call it. And then we'll change in its settings that it's not a solid color, but a motif, a repeating, a tiling pattern. Then if we right click and edit, we've got a nice yard that's been created. There we go. I'm just going to position that here, and in the size, I know that the width is 6,000 and the height is 480, and I can also set the X position to 0. But as you can see, this blue active object that we've got here means that we can't see our backdrop. So what we're going to do is click on that once and click in display options and turn off visible at start. I'm also going to click on arrange and lock selected object so it can't move. So that is actually going to be invisible now. So if we run our application, there we go. Perfect. Save your work, file and save. In this section, we're going to be adding different enemy types. So like I said before, this is our template enemy. And if we want, we can add more in. We can just pull from the side and just add more in. But we want to add different variations. So we're going to add a helicopter in. So if you right click on one of them, if you have multiple selected, just click in the gray area and then click on one of them and right click and choose clone object. And this way we have all of the values still set. And I'm going to change its name to be helicopter or chopper or whatever you want to call it. Now, if we right click and edit, we can import over the top. Let's find enemy stopped, enemy B stopped 1, import as an animation and replace current animation. There we go. Now in the direction options, we want it to loop. If you press play, you can see that the blades spin. Now, if you can see, it's juddering a bit, and that's because the hotspot is not exactly in the right place for both. So if you click on view hotspot, I'm going to just choose a point that should stay the same. So just under the propellers there. And then if I go to frame, the next frame, I'll choose just under the propellers there. And if I press play, that's a bit better. And you can just adjust it to get it pixel perfect if you want. There we go. Happier with that. Speed 50, I think is fine. And for disappearing, if we import and just choose enemy disappearing and press OK, and we can press play and that plays through fine. Great. Now let's add the helicopters just off screen at the top, and we're going to give them a type of movement. So under movement, click on static and we're going to choose path movement. Now, path movement is a set of what are called nodes, which are a set of locations which the object moves to. And for our helicopter, make sure it's positioned on the right-hand side of your screen because we want to set a path of it coming to the left, then flying off again. So I'm going to press edit and I'm going to choose tape mouse. Now, tape mouse means that as I hold down, it will keep on adding a node. So I'm just going to hold down the mouse and I'm going to drag downwards, going to get it to hover about a bit and then fly off. And the speed is 50, which is too fast, I think. So I'm going to select all the nodes because each node can have its own speed and set it to be 25. Now, if I run the application, you can see as soon as the application starts, the helicopter's off, flying about and flying off. That's not what I want. But just before I do that, let's change its values. A helicopter should have more health, so maybe a health of 8. Attack time takes longer, maybe 90, but when it hits you, does damage of 3. And let's give it points of 300 there. So changing all those settings will change the way that it causes damage and how often it attacks. We only want the helicopter to fly once it's just getting on screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it down a little bit so that it ends up colliding with this shooting area, because that's the thing that will trigger it being on screen. So we'll go to our event editor and we'll say at start of frame, which we've already got here on line 2, that all of the bad objects stop their movement. So right click, movement, stop. And then we can say that if the group bad is overlapping the shoot area, we've got set screen on, but we can also get them to start at that point. So let's right click, movement, start. Now it will keep on starting them, but that won't be any problem because starting when something's already started isn't a problem. So the helicopter's not there, and then we hit and there's the helicopter. There it comes on. Fantastic. Save your work, file and save. This next enemy is going to pop up from the bottom of the screen. It's sort of like a surprise attack. So let's go to the frame editor and let's click on our firefighter enemy and we will right click and again clone. And let's rename them. In the about properties, let's call it Firefighter 2. That works fine because it will be a firefighter. So let's edit the way it looks. Right click and edit. and open up, and it's called enemy C, and stopped. Now for this enemy, because it's popping up from the bottom of the screen, I'm actually going to change the hotspot to be at the top center. So if we click on the hotspot here, you can see it's set right at the top, and the action point, let's place by the hands. And for disappearing, when we import, let's find enemy C disappearing, import as animation, replace current animation, and top center for the hotspot again. Great. Okay. Now, this enemy is going to have path movement also. So if we just click on movement and change it from static to path, but it's just going to be a very basic path, really basic. Click edit, and I want them to pop up. And this is why I chose the top, because it's easier to see. I want them to pop up probably about that high, and speed 50 is fine for this one, so that they really sort of come up onto screen. You could even edit it and take it much higher just by clicking on the edit button. Anyway, let's see how that works. So if we run our application, yep, there we go. Now we've got a couple of issues that they are behind some of the other objects. So if we go to our event editor, on always, we can order them to the front for Firefighter 2. Now that is going to override the target. So this is how we change the order of things once we've already added the actions in. You just double click and you get this event list editor, and you change the order. So we want the final thing to be brought to front being the target, and so the target will be on front. To get back, we just click on the event editor, and there we are, back. And so it'll run them in that order. Great, so that should solve that problem. You can test it, you can run your application, and then there we go. Now, I don't want them always to pop up at the front on the furthest right of the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new condition that if a Firefighter 2, if their flag is on, that they're on screen, but we're going to right click on those words and we're going to insert that their flag for positioned is off, is a flag off. For Firefighter 2 is a flag positioned off. So make sure on screen is on and positioned is off for Firefighter 2. Let's right click and position. Let's set their X coordinate. Now we know where the left of the screen is, we know where the right of the screen is, so we should be able to set them randomly between them. So it's going to be a random range between the storyboard controls, the frames, X coordinate of left visible edge, so the minimum changes to left frame, but we need to add in the 225 for that black box that we've got where we're going to add our counters in. And then we'll need to drag and select over those triangles. If you're struggling, you can press the tab key and it'll automatically select it. And we want to get the frames X coordinate of right visible edge. So that's the valid expression. That's happy with that. A random range, R random, open parenthesis, open bracket, the X left of frame plus 225, comma, the X right of frame, close parenthesis or close bracket. Okay. And we want to turn positioned on so it doesn't run it again. So right click, flags set on, positioned. So let's run that. And now they won't pop up. There we go. Now they're popping up somewhere different. Fantastic. Okay, well that's that enemy. We'll move on to a next one. Let's save this file and save. Okay, into the frame editor. We're going to once again right click and clone the Firefighter, that template one we've made. And this time in the about properties, it's going to be a fire truck. And so I'm going to right click and edit, and we'll open up, and this time it's enemy D. So enemy D stopped for the stopped animation. And this time we want the hotspot, it's going to be at the very front of the truck. So let's change that to the right, to the center right. Okay. And you can see that if we choose the hotspot, there it is. And if we go to disappearing, let's import and go to enemy disappearing 1 and leave it at center right, import as animation. That's fine. Okay. Now, this fire truck is going to have a movement of bouncing ball, just like the scrolling. Now, remember with the scrolling, just for reference, we set a speed of 10. I'm going to make the fire truck go faster than that. So change the type to bouncing ball. The initial direction, let's clear that and set it just to the right or 0. And the speed, I'm going to set it to be maybe 18. So in our event editor, we need to do a condition about when it's being positioned, because currently it's just going to drive off before we see it, and we want it to appear from the other side. So in the event editor, we will go to new condition. If the fire truck, if the alt for value flags are on, just the same as before on screen, and right click and insert, the fire truck alt for values flags is off positioned. Now we want to position it at the left visible edge plus the 225 for the GUI, the black bar for the graphical user interface. So let's right click and position, set the X coordinate to be the frame, the X coordinate of the left visible edge plus 225. And that's why we put the hotspot on the right side, so it'll match. And then flags, make sure you set on positioned. So if we run our application, the fire truck should appear from the other side, and there it is. Now you can see that it's driving in front of those other people. So again, what we can do is we can just do a bring to front. So order bring to front, and we might as well do that for the firefighter and the helicopter. Order bring to front and order bring to front. And for the splash, order bring to front. Now the reason I'm doing all of those is that if I double click, we can say, well, we want the target to be always at the front. We want this person to be there and the helicopter to be always at the back and the fire truck to be just behind it and the person there. And this way I can stack, because I've given the command to each of them. By double clicking on any of the ticks, I can then put them in order so that they're always going to appear in the right way in front of each other. So if we run our application, we find that things aren't working exactly as you'd expect. As you can see, they're in front, and so it's not working perfectly. What you can do is if you go back into your event editor, you can move things behind other objects. So if you can replace this and say that the helicopter's order is moved behind object, it's always going to be behind the fire truck. And then the fire truck, right click on it and replace the fire truck order is always going to be behind the firefighter, and then right click that the firefighter's order is always going to be moved behind firefighter 2. You won't be able to run it from the event list editor, but if we go to the frame editor and run application, you can see it's working properly now. Now you may have realized that the fire truck, because it's driving to the right, won't actually be destroyed if you don't shoot it in time. So this command here, which says that when they go off the left-hand side of the screen, they get destroyed, doesn't really apply to the fire truck because it goes off the right-hand side of the screen. So we're just going to edit this rule. And what we're going to do is change it so that when they're not overlapping the shoot area and they've been on screen, then we destroy them. And then that applies to everything. And it's quite common that you have to tweak rules as you add new characters and new enemies into the game. So let's replace this rule. On number 10, right click, replace, that if a group bad is overlapping another object, shoot area, and then we right click and negate so it's not overlapping, then right click to insert that group bad alt for value flags is on screen. So if on screen is on and it's not overlapping, then destroy that. To the frame editor. So just before we save our work, just make sure you edit the alt for values to give different points. So this fire truck is going to be much harder to kill. So maybe you have a health of 10 for the fire truck and a slow attack time of maybe 120, but an massive attack power of maybe 8 or so there, so that you really have to hit it quickly. And you can change the settings for the other ones as well. So maybe give more points for and a higher health for other things. Just set them exactly how you want, but you're only changing the health, attack time, and attack power and points. The attack calculator is done automatically, and so is the random sound. Make sure those remain unticked or unchecked. So let's file and save. Great stuff. So in Operation Wolf, they had hostages that would run across screen that you'd lose points if you hit. Now we're going to make those. So we're going to make them from the firefighter enemy. We will clone them again. And this time we will call it dog. And let's right click and edit and open and import. And here we go. And dog stopped. Now dog stopped is actually a animation. I want the hotspot to be in the center left this time because it's going to run in from the side of the screen. Great. And if we go to direction options, we can choose loop, press play. It's hopping along. And for disappearing, we'll import and dog disappearing 1. And again, center left for the hotspot. And okay. Now, exactly the same as the fire truck, but the opposite direction. We're going to set movement, going to change it to bouncing ball. Initial direction we'll reset and set it to number 16, which is to the left. And the speed, well, let's set it to be about 12. Now, for the AZ, because the dog is friendly, we want to make it not attack. So we'll give an attack time of 0, an attack power of 0, and health of 1. And points we will set to minus, so minus 500 points for hitting the dog. So if we run our frame, it's a bit slow for the dog. So let's change those. It looked a bit funny. Let's change its speed to be more like 25. And the animation, let's sort it out so it doesn't look so hoppity. Double click on it or right click and edit options. Let's change the speed down to 20. Maybe 25. Okay, let's run the frame. There we go, that's better. And again, we'll just have to go into the event editor and these always, let's just say that the dog is always in front of the firefighter. So right click, order, move in front of object, firefighter. Let's run our application again. Perfect. Now in terms of laying out the level, you want to have it so that there's plenty of different things at different times. But what's quite nice to break it up is to have some obstacles in the way. So we've got some bushes that you can add. So insert a new object, active, okay, click to put down, and let's rename this. So a bush or a shrub of some kind, right click and edit and import. There we go. And it's not an animation, but it doesn't matter. And then you can start to hide things a bit more. And if I hold down Control, I can drag and drop the same item, and I can also pull from the side. And again, with the order, if you go to the event editor, under the always, we want to right click and order, always bring it in front of the firefighter. And there we go. And maybe now we need the dog in front of the bush. So and just right click and edit that on the dog. Always bring the dog in front of the bush. There we go. We can start taking them out. Brilliant. So lay out your level, add in enemies across, and save your work. File and save. So let's sort out the GUI, the visual display of our health and our lives and everything that's happening. So first of all, I'm just going to click and pull and drag down over these counters and move them off screen. And we'll edit this, this black area. So we need to go in the layers toolbar and select layer 2. And I'm just going to bring up what the final thing is going to look like. So I've just made a little snippet of it. And so here it is. We're going to have score. Then we're going to have the amount of magazines or the water canisters, the splashes, the amount of water left, the water balloons or water bombs. And then in the game, it's got the enemies that you've defeated, sort of a counter for those, and damage. So we're going to create the score, enemies, and damage writing, and that's a string. So you can just click Insert, New Object, and go to Text and String, and put it outside because it's going to be black and it's going to be difficult to see. And let's change the text options. Change the font, and you can just choose a font. I've used Courier for sort of a blocky font. And you can change the color, and you can make it white or similar, and pop it over the black box. And it might need some shuffling about later, but let's just write things in. So we have score. Let's remind ourselves, enemies and damage. And I'm just going to shuffle it a bit to the side. Great. And also you'll see that the lives that we put on before, they've been hidden. They're underneath. Now, to access them, we can go on layer 1 and turn off layer 2, turn off the visuals for layer 2 to get them and move them out. Another way you could just do it is you could just drag in from the side a new lives, whichever way you feel is easiest, to get them into layer 2. And you see there's a number 2 there to represent it's layer 2 rather than these things on layer 1. Okay, make sure layer 2 is selected for the next bit. So let's add in a score. So insert a new object, and under all objects, let's add a score and click to put it down. Now it's black at the moment. If we go into its settings, change it to text, then we can do the same thing in text options. You can change the color. So I'm going to make it white, and I'm going to choose Courier as well, but I'll probably choose a bold Courier and slightly bigger, so 19. There we go. So there's our score. And let's add the code in for that now. So in the event editor, we can say that if the health is 0, then destroy the bad guys. And for the score, now this will take a little bit of fiddling, and I'll show you why. We're going to, under the player 1, we're going to right click and get score. We're going to add to the score whatever the group bad values of their points. The issue that we have is that the health is equal to 0 and we destroy them, but the health is still 0 as they're being destroyed because we have the animation. So if we run the application, I should get 100 points, but if you watch, there you go, I get 1200. And so it keeps on counting up. So what we want to do is not only just destroy them, but if we right click here and alt for values, we set their health to be -1, then that means that it won't trigger anymore. So now if I click, there we go, 100 points. And if I shoot the dog, go into minuses, and it serves me right. Okay, let's go back into the frame editor now that our score's up and running, and let's have a little look at the other things that we should add. So we've got the canisters and the water and the balloons. So the canisters have a number next to them, and we've already got this number here, this mag counter. So I'm going to change settings to be text, and again, just choose the same options, courier, but this time I'm going to choose it to be a green color. Great. Now it's on the wrong layer. It's on layer 1. So I'm just going to drag it to layer 2. There we go. And now it'll be on top. So that we can visually see the canisters, counters in Clickteam only give us the options of being hidden, numbers, a vertical bar, a horizontal bar, an animation, or text. Now what we want is an icon that repeats, and that's what lives do. So we're going to use lives. So we're going to insert a new object. We're going to insert lives, and we're going to change it so that these are player 2's lives. And we'll change the icon by double clicking on them. Let's import the icon for a canister. Okay. And there we go. We'll pop that in there, and we'll also resize it so that as it grows, it can fill 2 columns, 2 rows worth. Okay, we'll clone that 3 times, because we'll have players 3's lives represent the water left. So let's double click on those and import icon splash. And then the final one will be the water balloons. So click on that. That'll be player 4. And that will be the water balloons. We're using lives as a shortcut, as a quick way of doing something. So you will need to note down that lives 2 are for your magazines, lives 3 are for your ammo, and lives 4 are for your water balloons. Because we're about to add some events in the event editor. Under always on line 4, you'll notice that we only have player 1 there. So we need to get access to player 2, 3, and 4. Now Clickteam knows that there isn't a player for 2, 3, or 4, so we'll just have to temporarily create one. So we'll insert a new object, active object, place it down just for the short term, and set its movement to be 8 directions moved by player 4. And then this way, in the event editor, we've got players 1 to 4 now. We'll remove that object in a moment, but first of all, we'll say always player 2 lives. Let's number of lives, set the number of lives to be whatever the magazine counter is. So let's just get the magazine counter, that mag counter current value. Great. Player 3, right click under always, number of lives, set number of lives to be our ammo counter, our current value of the ammo counter, just there. And then number 4, let's right click, number of lives, set number of lives, the water balloons that we've heard so much about that we need to add in, the current value of the water balloons. So now if we run our application, you'll see that every time we shoot, it depletes. And there we go. Did I lose all my lives immediately there? Let's just run that again. Run application. Yep. I did lose my lives really quickly. So I'll need to make this a bit easier. So I definitely would recommend probably making the fire trucks less powerful, lower attack power, and the helicopters as well, a lower attack power. That would be helpful. Okay, now we can get rid of this active object here, which we use temporarily just for its movement. We can click on it, we can right click and just choose delete. And you can see in the event editor, we've still got, because there is action set, we've still got players 1 to 4 there. Great. For the enemies, we can insert a new object. We can insert a backdrop object. Make sure you're still on layer 2. And so we'll import the icon for the firefighter. So icon firefighter, and pop it in down here. And then we'll right click on it if we can get there. Oh, no, the string's over the top. So we'll just insert another new object, backdrop, double click on it, open, or you can right click and edit the icon of the fire truck, and then insert another new object, another backdrop object, and import icon of the helicopter. Okay, and just pop those down there, because in Operation Warfare I had like a little representation of how many enemies you took out. Okay, if this is getting in your way, you can lock it. So we can also name it. I'm just going to name it as the GUI titles and arrange, and let's lock that. Lock. And now it's locked. I can select the things behind it quite easily. Great. Insert a new object. Let's get the counters going. Or even better, let's clone the mag counter. So let's clone that. And let's have another one with the same look. And then let's just call this firefighter counter. And change it to initial value of 0. And if I clone this, and if I choose one row but 3 columns, then it just goes along the side. And I can then give this a name of fire truck or fire engine, depending where you're from, counter, and then the helicopter or the chopper, the helicopter counter. Right, well, let's add some code in to get those to work. So in the event editor, we've got this line here, which says that if the health is 0, then we add the points to score and we destroy. So we need to add in before here, before health gets set to -1, we need to add in counting. So let's right click and insert a new event. And that is that if the firefighters alt for value compare, if their health is equal to 0, then what we want to do is we want to go along to the firefighter counter on that line, on line 15 for me, but on the firefighter counter, and right click and add counter 1. Now I'm going to click on line 15 and I'm going to press edit copy and then edit and paste, because I want the same rule but for firefighter 2. So I'm going to double click on firefighter and choose firefighter 2. And then I'm going to copy and paste again. So edit, copy, edit, paste. And this time it's going to be for the fire truck. Now we don't want to add one to the firefighter counter. So let's drag the tick to the next column, to the fire truck one, and drag a blank tick over it. And you've got to, we'll select the number, copy and paste. So I used Control C and Control V as a shortcut, but you can choose edit, copy and edit, paste as before, and drag the tick along so that we have a counter here. So now if I run my application, it will keep track of how many of the different objects I've destroyed as we've gone. Brilliant. Well, that's the graphical user interface done. So let's go to the frame editor or the heads up display you might want to call it. And let's lock it. So we'll go to frame 1 and we'll choose lock. And then that way we won't accidentally move anything or change anything. Let's save our work, file and save. Right, it's about time we add in the water balloons and some extra power-ups. So let's insert a new object. Under all objects, active, press OK. Let's place it off screen for the moment and right click and edit. And let's import power-up water balloon. And let's put the hotspot in the center. Okay. And let's title it. I'm going to title it bomb. We call them water bombs. There we go. Now we want it to be that if we right click, that it throws a water bomb. So let's go into the event editor and add in a new condition at the very bottom that if the mouse user clicks, and this time we're going to check right button. There we go. So user clicks right button, and we're going to right click and insert that the bomb counter, the current value compared to the current value is greater than 0. And we'll do a few things here. We will first of all create, so under the white shiny box, we will create object and we'll create a bomb and create that relative to wherever the target is. The next thing we'll do is we will subtract, before we forget, from the bomb counter. So right click, subtract from counter 1. And the final thing we'll do, and the next thing we'll do, is we will get the water bomb to launch the splashes. So we'll say launch an object, a splash, launch in selected directions, and let's select any random directions. Press OK. Now that's going to do it once. We want to do it multiple times and save ourselves time. If we double click and enter the event list editor again, we can select this rule. We can use edit, copy, and edit, paste, or Control V as our shortcut, and get it to do a whole load of times. Go back to the event editor and let's then destroy the water balloon at the end. So if we run the application, if we right click, there we go, we get the splashes happening. Now this is where we run into the issue that I spoke about before, that if you have multiple splashes hitting something, then at that point it won't count them, it will just take them as one hit. So let's find, here it is, if splash is overlapping group bad and used is off, what we want to do is we want to right click here and insert that to do it one at a time. So with splash, pick or count, pick a splash at random. So it only does it for one each time it runs through, and it'll run through that as many times as they hit. So now we run the application and I hit the fire truck. I should be able to take out the fire truck with one splash. Great. And the helicopter. Brilliant. That works well. Now let's go into the frame editor. Now in our game, we want to be able to collect extra water balloons. So let's place a couple around. And if we go into our event editor, we can have a new condition that if the mouse clicks on an object, user clicks on an object, left button single click on the water balloon. Well, at that point, we can destroy the water balloon without causing a splash, but just destroy it. And then for the bomb counter, let's right click and add to counter 1. And we'll add some other power-ups as well. So let's insert a new object, another active object, and let's name this. Now this is going to be a slushy, or a slush puppy, or you know, frozen drink, and this will give us energy. So let's right click and edit and import and add in the power-up there. Great. I'll pop it down here. And this will just give us some energy. So in the event editor, a new condition that if the mouse clicks on an object, user clicks on an object, left button single click on the slushy, then we will destroy the slushy. And for player 1, that's us, number of lives, adds number of lives, and let's add 10 lives. So if we watch our lives down the side, that red bar go down. If I click the slush puppy, see it go back. Let's get rid of all those. Still died. But anyway, need to just make it a bit more easier and space characters out. So let's add another power up. Let's insert a new object, an active object. Let's double click to edit it, or right click and edit. And let's add a canister, a power up canister, not icon canister. And we can, we could hide it if we wanted. We could order backwards one, and let's order backwards one again. We could move it behind a hedge. Maybe if we just move the hedge forwards. There we go. You could hide it behind things and place it. So let's give it a name. Let's call it a water tank mag, so that we remember it's the magazine. And go into the event editor, and just to save time, I'm going to pull the words onto new condition, and it will copy it along, and double click on the slushy, the water canister, and I can drag the tick diagonally as well, or I could just choose right click and destroy. But either way, I can copy the tick, and then for the counter, for the not the ammo counter, but the mag counter, add to counter 1. Great. Go to the event editor. Now, in Operation Wolf, there were exploding barrels, but if we are having a water fight, let's have a fire hydrant. So if we go to insert a new active object, right click, edit, and get a fire hydrant, and pop that down. Let's call it hydrant, and we will just say that if that is clicked on, so drag that down. If you click on the fire hydrant, then we will copy what happens with the water balloon. So all of these launches, let's just save time and drag it there. And let's run that, try that. There we go. Oh, hit the dog. But I'm doing better health-wise now. That canister hidden behind. Yep, got the extra canister, got the extra water balloon. Working well. And the final power-up is a golden water pistol, so that you can just shoot all the time. So we insert a new object, hopefully for the last time, an active object. Let's right-click, edit it, import, and the power-up the golden gun. This one's got a bit more code to it than the others. So let's just title it Golden Gun in the About properties. And what we'll do is we need to keep a count. So in the target, we're going to, in the AZ, we're going to add a new alt4 value. We're going to call it Golden Gun. And let's just say a new condition. So if we drag down the words, so if you click on the golden gun, then we will destroy the golden gun, but with the target alt4 values, we will set the golden gun to a length of time that they have the golden gun, and we'll do it in hundredths of seconds again. So let's say they have it for 5 seconds. So 500 there. Let's find the every 100th of a second, this on line 5 for me. Currently we add 1 to reload time. Let's alt values subtract from the golden gun, alt for value 1. So it's counting down from the golden gun. Then we need to make it so that we don't lose any ammo with the golden gun. So we're going to right click on line 3 when it's not selected and insert a new event. And the new event is the mouse repeat while mouse key is pressed. So we get that come up there. And this time we want to insert that the target ultimate values that compared to ultimate values that the golden gun time is greater than 0. So we've clicked on it, it starts at 500, starts counting down, and every time we're holding down and the golden gun is greater than 0, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to right click and we're going to set the ultra values of the reload time. We're going to force it to reload. So anything over 10, so 11 and upwards, because the rule is that it needs to be higher than 10. So I'm going to set it to 999. And we also then want to add a bullet back because it's just about to subtract 1 from counter. So what we'll do is we'll counteract that and add to counter 1 so that the bullet ammo counter adds 1 because the next line is going to subtract 1. So if we run our application now, when I get the golden gun, I then get infinite ammo for 5 seconds. And then after that, it goes back to normal. Perfect. Let's save the work, file, and save. Now, we haven't got any title screens or any end screens yet. So there's no way of completing the game and there's no way of losing the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the storyboard editor, which is where we started. And we're going to click on the number 2 and then the number 3 to get frames 2 and 3. And we're also then going to switch them around. So if you can pull on number 2 onto number 1, they'll switch around, and let's give them a title. So we'll call this the intro. This is the game. And then this will be the end screen. There. Okay. Now in frame 1, if we click on the grey number 1, we can insert a new object and a backdrop. Click to put it down. Right click and edit it and import. And we've got a title here that will fit nicely. So you can just pop that in. You can also insert a string with some instructions or who made the game or whatever you want to say. So I'm just going to say, just double click on it and choose click to start. You could also change the way it looks and make it stand out. You could make it flash in the event editor. There's all sorts of things you could do, but you could just go into the font properties and you can change whatever you like. Set it to center and let's have it there. So in the event editor, I'm just going to simply say new condition that on the mouse, user clicks, single click left button, then we'll right click and go to the next frame. Now we'll test that, run application, click start, there we go, start the game, hit the dog again, sorry, doesn't mind, just getting wet, and that's working fine. Now we'll need to go into the game and we'll need to set it what happens when you die. So there's a few ways we could tell that we've completed the level. When the pink scroll arrow gets all the way to the end, then we've completed the level. Or when all the enemies have been destroyed, or both of those, we know that. We also know that when our health gets to 0 or our ammo gets to 0, we can't continue. So let's go to the event editor. We're going to use something called a global value so that we can pass a value from one frame to the next. And that's stored in the application. If we go to the application and values, we find global values. And I'll rename it. So we're going to have win is 1, no ammo is 2, and no health is 3. I'm just going to set up like that so that I know what it means. Now, a new condition, if we've managed to kill all the bad guys, so pick or count, have all of the bad guys been destroyed, then under special conditions, if you right click there, we can change that global value. We can set it. So if all of them been destroyed, I'm going to set this value to 1. And then I'm going to go to the next frame. And let's have a new condition. Now, if my ammo, let's find it. There you go, ammo counter 12. Compare it to a value. If it's equal to 0, and let's right click and insert our mag counter is equal to 0, we were out of ammo. So let's right click under the cogs, change the global value. Let's set it to 2 for no ammo and go to the next frame. Then finally, if new condition, if player 1, when lives reach 0, then change the global value. Let's right click under the cogs, set it to 3 for no health and right click next frame. Great, that's all set up. Let's go to the storyboard editor and go into frame 3. Or we can just double click here. It'll get us to the same place. So we've got 3 different options of what's going to happen. So let's insert a new object, active, and let's import. If we open the end images, open those, and import as animation, and just pop those on that side of the screen. Now, if you notice, it's got 4 different frames. The first one is going to be used for winning. The second one is going to be used for the running out of ammo. And the fourth one is for running out of health. So we've got those in place. And let's insert a new object, quick backdrop, and let's pop that in and just stretch that down across and set its color. So in the settings, let's set it to black, and we're going to insert a new object, a text object and a string. Now, place the string off screen and set it to the right font and color that you want. And we're going to use something called paragraphs. Paragraphs are a way of having different text preset. So let's get this text to fill screen and move it to the right place. Now, see, you've got paragraph 1, we're going to have paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and they're going to relate to the 1, 2, or 3. So 1 is you win. Paragraph 2 is going to be the no ammo, and paragraph 3 is no health. Now, if you want to write in detail, sort of a bit of a story, you've run out of health, you can't go on, you can just click on these dots and you can type in whatever you want there, and I'll copy and paste something in a moment. But let's just check how this works. So in the event editor, we want a new condition. At the very start of this frame, we want to set the animation, change the animation frame. So the first one is 0, and the second one is 1, then 2, then 3. We want to set it to whatever the global value of 1 for win, 2 for no ammo, 3 for health. And we want to do this for paragraphs here for the string. We want to set the paragraph, use a calculation, and click on the cogs, retrieve a global value, 1 for win, 2 for ammo, 3 for health. Okay. Now we run the frame as is. They'll just be default. It'll just be frame 0 and the first paragraph, because we haven't set the global value. So to test it out, all we need to do is click on our application and then the values, and we can set a default. So I'll set it 1 for win and run the frame. Make sure you run the frame, not the application. 1, win. Fantastic. 2, make sure you click on the frame that you want to run frame. 2, no ammo. And then if we click back and change it to 3, so click on the application, values 3, and go back to end and run the frame. 3, no health. Great. And those should all be set in the game, depending what happens. What we also want to do is we probably want to have a new condition. The mouse user clicks. And then we want to restart the application. But we don't want the user, if the user's clicking away in the game and then it comes to the end screen, we don't want that to immediately happen. So we can insert, right click on those words and insert timer is the timer greater than a certain value, that will give them 2 seconds before they can click to restart the game. Great. Pretty much there. Just the options for adding sounds and a help string in the game as well. So file and save your work. So I've copied over some different text to do that, and let's add some sounds. So if we go into the game frame, so right click and we go straight to the event editor, or you can go into the frame editor and then the event editor up here. We've got some different sounds to add. Now, so when we shoot, we will have a sound. So if you right click under the speaker on this command, it's on my line 4, but when you have more than 0 ammo and reload time is greater than 10. So if you right click and choose samples, play sample, and then from a file, click browse. And if you've downloaded, you can choose the attack sound. That's the splash sound. And it's the same sound for when the enemies attack. So when the attack calculator equals 1, you can just drag that tick if you want down to there, or you can do the same thing, right click and play sample. Now there's a few specific ones in terms of when vehicles get destroyed. So we can go right click sample, play sample, browse, and then you can have when the vehicle gets wet. You can have that for the helicopter as well. Now, what I said before about having a random sound for the firefighters, this is where you can implement it. So we've got these commands when health equals 0 of the first firefighter. We can right click and change under firefighter, make sure it's the same firefighter there and firefighter. Set the alt4 value of the random sound to be a random range between 1, press tab, and 6. And then I'm just going to drag this diagonally across to firefighter 2 there. And then you can add a new condition that if a bad has an alt4 value of random sound, if it's equal to 1, then you can play the sample, play sample, browse, and then we've got 6 different hit sounds. Hit 1, and I'm just going to click on 32 and copy and paste it 6 times like we've done before, and then double click on the number 1, change it to a 2. Okay, double click 3, click on the number, make sure you click on the number 4, 5, 6. Now the sounds won't match, so this is still hit 1 for all of them. So let's right click and edit this, browse from a file, hit 2, right click, edit, browse from a file, hit 3, hit 6. Now it's going to keep on playing that sound forever, and it'll sound horrific. So let's just solve that. So right click under group bad, and alt4 values set the random noise back to 0 or 7, a number that won't trigger. So now if we run our application, yeah, fantastic. So also for when objects come onto screen, there's some special sounds, and so you can trigger those. So new condition, the dog, alt4 values flag is on. If it's on screen, right click, we don't want it to always bark, but just the first time it comes on screen, we can insert a special condition to say limit condition, run this event once when event loops. Okay, and then we can right click samples, play sample, browse, have the dog enter. And then we can copy and paste this a few times and double click on the dog and change it for when the fire truck enters and when the helicopter enters, and just right click and edit as we did before on the hits. So what's this? This is the fire truck entering. So fire truck entering and the helicopter entering as well. So if we run that, great. And there's other sounds that you can add in for the hydrant and the slushy and things like that. They're all labeled in there. Now, one thing that Operation Wolf has is it has a little help bar explaining what your mission is, how much ammo you've got. And so I'll just quickly demonstrate some of the things you can do with that. So if we go into our layer toolbar in the frame editor of the game and go to frame 2, we can insert a new object and our friend, the string. Let's pop it in there. Now, because this layer is locked, I can't do anything with it. So I need to click on the lock to unlock it. And there we go. And now I can move it. And I want to stretch that out to be all the way across the bottom of the screen, and a nice bright color that will contrast with the green of the grass. And I'll choose my Courier font again, and nice big and bold, and set it to the center. Now, in the runtime options, make sure follow the frame is not selected because we want it to stay in the same place. But we do want, in terms of its display options, we don't want it to be visible. So we'll make it invisible. Now, we can set certain events to trigger certain phrases. So a new condition may be that when our mag counter gets to 1, so when our mag counter equals 1, and we want to use this only one action, one event loop. So right click and insert the cogs, limit conditions only once when event loops. Then we want a couple of things to happen, 3 things to happen. So for the string that we've just added, let's label it. Let's be a smart thing to do. Let's just call it help. What we can do is we can then change the alterable string to say you are running low on water. And we want it to reappear. So visibility, make it reappear. Then we want it to disappear after 3 seconds. So under the timer, right click, fire an event after a given delay. So 3 seconds later, you can make it longer if you want. We run an event. So let's call it hide help. Make sure you have it in the speech marks in the double inverted commas. The new condition with the timer on event, and it needs to match exactly. So hide help with the double inverted commas or the speech marks. Make sure it's written exactly the same as this one, hide help. Then under the help, we want to visibility, right click on it, visibility, make object invisible. And there's several different things that could trigger. You could have it when you pick up the, when you click on the hydrant or the golden gun. The golden gun might be a good thing to do. You want to then, under the help, change the alterable string to, you have a rapid fire gun, and visibility, make it reappear. And all we need to do is just run that same event after a given delay. So fire event after given delay, after 3 seconds, hide help. Okay, let's have a quick look at that and see what happens when we have a rapid fire. Fantastic. So add your own helps in, add sort of like get extra sound effects in, and make yourself a great game. Download ours and have a look. Any issues, give us an email. We'll see if we can help. But have a great fun. in the sun having a water fight in Operation Splash. Take care. See you next Retro Remake. Bye-bye.